This is Senate Appropriations, and we're taking up S-181, and the reporter of the bill is Senator Chittenden from the Committee on Finance. The genesis of the bill actually, when I believe it was sponsored by the Pro Tem, and it was an attempt to deal with the declining revenues that are available to support our public access television network. Last year, this committee actually moved the budget for the public access over to the Secretary of State's office, recognizing that they have a unit on civics and government, and so much of what public access does, covering meetings of local boards. Sometimes they interview legislators. They cover a lot of events, and it's a way of helping support citizen involvement. So we have had a discussion. We have for the last couple of years done one-time appropriations to bridge the funding to make up the decline. But at some point, the question is, how do we stabilize the funding? And this is what the bill is, just to refresh people's memories about what we have done as a committee in the past, and then how we want to proceed. So this is what the bill that's come out of our committee next door would propose doing. So Senator Chittenden, I'll let you take it from there.
Great. I think what might be useful is to talk about how we came to where our strike all amendment landed. And this is really exactly as Chair Kitchell just outlined this. We're looking for ways to continue to fund local public education and government access to our radio waves, or not radio waves, our television channels. Think of Wayne's World, think of Between Two Ferns for the younger audience. Those are important staples of our communities to be able to broadcast and create high production quality local broadcasting. And that takes money. It takes resources to have physical spaces with the sound quality. Many of you have been to your local access stations. It takes dollars. And that's traditionally been funded through a gross receipts tax, or I think it's actually referred to as a right-of-way fee, but cable companies pay the access management organizations through the PUC about 5% of their revenues to fund those public education and government services that provide the resources for people to have, exactly as the chair spoke about, local debates when our town meeting comes around, for people to have local access stations or channels about things that are important to them, for the government to broadcast information. Those have been declining as more and more Vermonters, and as well as Americans, have been cutting the cord. I usually ask for a show of hands for who knows what that reference is. I won't do that here, but I personally have cut the cord. What does that mean? I no longer pay for cable television. I just have—
This was an umbilical cord.
I have an internet service through it's Xfinity now, and then I pay over the top of 6 streaming services. So I pay for Disney Plus, Netflix, I think Paramount Plus. It's because of kids. Every time I cancel one of these things, they give me all sorts of grief because they have shows on these. But those services are all streaming content created outside of Vermont, in California, in New York, everywhere else in the country, into Vermont, and charging for those services. What this does is really create parity with what we are currently still charging our cable companies. Our cable companies, I don't know if you know this, if you do have cable service, they pay the 5% to the access management organizations, and on top of that, customers are paying the sales tax on your cable bill. So we pay sales tax. Right now with Netflix, if you do have Netflix, you are paying Netflix or any of the streaming providers. I should not be singling out any specific provider. You are paying that sales tax, but you're not also, where those companies are not contributing to support what I argue is a very critical service, the capability, capacity, and ability to have locally high quality created content so that Vermonters and Vermont communities can broadcast this. This is a funding mechanism to create some parity with the cable providers that are selling into the state a lot of content. I think you've seen the JFO note. I would defer to Kirby for a lot of the details on that, but I think it's also here because it appropriates $1.1 million, which is the estimate from the tax department on what it costs to stand up a new tax. But I think it's estimated to bring in between $6 and $9 million, if I recall correctly. Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, it is. And I would just, I'll simply clarify that this revenue is not, although the genesis for it was to look at revenue to stabilize the public access network. The money is coming to the general fund, and it's like we often try not to do, and that's have a designated for a specific purpose, but would appropriate the funding in the same way we do for others. So in no way, no, we haven't gotten any bills.
Do you expect any this afternoon?
I'm hoping so.
Okay.
We'll let you know. This is all dedicated toward one particular activity, because those of us who are here on the budget know that there's tremendous amount of need that we're gonna have to address. So I just want to point this out, that it's not a dedicated special fund. It would go into the general fund and would have to be considered as part of our overall budget decision.
Hopefully, I mean, it things to match up with where all the monies come from to keep this local stuff going. We, when we're all gone, and that's forgotten where this money came from, it's in the general fund. Disappear again, and it's too bad we couldn't set it up somehow so that, how does the other money get to these?
It goes to goes through the Secretary of State's office. That's what this declining revenue.
5%.
I think that's approximately correct. I recall one email thread where I believe the cable companies paid directly to the AMOs is what I was, but maybe it's channeled through.
Oh,
the
well, I guess
States.
maybe I'm thinking about the one-time money that we've been appropriated. That's where we did this. Yes, so I don't, do you want to confirm that?
Kirby King left the council. Usually Maria Royal works with
Oh,
the,
okay.
with the cable franchise, but my understanding is, yeah, that goes through the PUC, or, right?
I think the PUC negotiates the contracts and then just has the cable
You know
companies
the
pay
answer.
directly to the AMOs, but I could be mistaken.
Ted-
Uh,
All right, we have the answer.
Ted Burnett, Joint Fiscal Office. The payments are made directly from AMOs, or from cable companies to AMOs.
Okay.
Both the Secretary of State and PUC are involved, or PSD are involved in oversight, but they don't perform any oversight for those funds.
Okay, but we did move the money that we had been paid, the appropriations to the Secretary of State. Because public service was really passing it through and had no capacity to make up the difference. And we were hoping that Secretary of State, which sometimes has funds that are direct app or reversions, could help support this, but we know from hearing their budget, they don't have any money. So to help support this particular activity, which they acknowledge is really an important piece of their whole civic engagement and getting Vermonters informed about decisions that impact their lives. So Senator Baruch.
Just building on what Senator Starr was saying, if the Secretary of State's office has this, is it possible to have a line in their budget, not a special fund, but a line in the
We'll have
Secretary?
to, we will after we.
Yeah.
After we.
Okay, that was my question.
And like an appropriation.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that way, to your point, it would survive us.
Okay, and then the other part is because this would be a new line, we actually would have to advance, and then we've done this in the past, and I don't know, Stephanie would always take care of it. And that is that we would then reimburse the tax department with the revenues to support the development, which they estimated to set up a new tax was 1.1 off the top of my head, 1.1. So we'll take care of that language as well. In other words, recognizing that this startup cost, we advanced money, we did that with Canada, so it's a very common process. So we could look at the language on that. So Senator
I forgot to say one other thing, from the bill that was originally introduced, there, we took a lot of testimony on the originally proposed, revenue stream of pole attachment fees. And the testimony we heard from, well, from 2 or 3 people was that that is in direct kind of conflict with federal law about redirecting monies from pole attachments to anything other than the maintenance of those poles. And so that's where this conversation went towards other comparable revenue streams to keep parity with the cable companies selling content into the state.
Senator,
Have other states already done?
My understanding, and I would defer to the JFO officer, members in the room, I believe Maine has something similar, Massachusetts is pondering it, and New York is looking at something similar, but I could be mistaken on that.
do you have a response either, Ted or?
So we're aware of proposals in Massachusetts and New York. I'm not aware of something like this for Maine. Maine though does, or has considered recently of applying sales tax to streaming.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, we want, this would, I think it was an excise tax,
You know what?
it's paid by the company and would go into the general fund. Sales tax does not go into the general fund, as we well know. Okay, other questions?
Since I, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to read this was in this. So what the bill would do is appropriate 1.1 million in general fund, the tax department to set up the system. And then the estimates are that the revenue that would come in after this are, like the first year, 6 to 7 million.
That sounds right.
Yeah, it's right here.
I like one thing, the effective date is actually retroactive to January 1st of this year, so the gross receipts should come in for this coming fiscal year, if I'm not mistaken.
Do we have any, what is this is the estimate for this year, 6 to 7.
6 to 7 million.
Seven.
So it'd be a half.
So, and then after we pay for the setup, it shows what would be the net proceeds that would be available to fund and the network as well as other funding needs that we certainly have a long list.
But that 3.5 would certainly give us enough money to front, just getting it set up.
Yeah, actually, if you got the joint fiscal note, it shows the 1.1, the revenue and the net would be 4.9 to 6.5.
Yep.
So they've actually calculated it for us.
Per year,
Well,
Yeah, for the first year, obviously,
even though that's us only half a year, first year. Fiscal year,
yeah,
January to June.
well, I don't know, it says fiscal year 25, but they would go back. Can you explain that? Yeah.
Sure. So for taxable year 2024, companies would pay on April 15th.
Mhm.
So this would be April 15th of 2025. And so that's why it all hits in fiscal year 25.
it drags a year.
So it's effective for this year, but companies pay on April 15th based on
The prior.
this,
yeah.
yes.
You won't get that.
Other questions?
And it's like Netflix, it's all of their services in Vermont.
Over 250.
Over $250,000 in net revenues, so small online broadcasters collecting less than 250K would not be
Impact.
So it's both, if it's done from dish or it comes through cable, they pay for everything.
So if it's a streaming, now one question that came up, and I believe we have an answer, Kirby answered that via email, Amazon. If anybody are Amazon Prime members, when you pay for Amazon Prime, you get a bunch of streaming content and you get free shipping and you get online cloud service and you get some music. So I believe it would be put on the companies that bundle these services to quantify the proportion of the value of their offering to what is valued in the streaming, and they will owe the 5% gross receipts on that streaming service.
So they have to disaggregate, otherwise they could pay 5% on the bundle, but I expect they would not want to do that.
My wife.
And the question.
Unrelated. So this is paid by the company. Now, of course, every time.
They're gonna raise their rates the
They raise the rates.
I'm gonna pay.
But I expect relative to Vermont, customer base compared to California or some other, I don't know, I would assume Amazon or Netflix, this would be pretty tiny,
And their price point is more important to them than making up this lost amount of revenue, I would think. Because there's these streaming wars going on out there, so.
Where it's more populated, it's very easy to pick up certain TV stations. You know, it's just a name town and.
so other questions or
Not up here in the
comments? I,
Yeah, I'll move the bill.
all right, okay, it's. Where's the, oh, sorry, oh, we have a second from Senator Baruch, the original sponsor of the bill.
Better than me.
I wrote star because he did. Yeah.
Star, and then second is by Baruch.
Well, the original version.
Oh,
Yes, I know you need to leave, so I don't want to.
One other question that came up that you all wanted to ponder, though it seems like this is ready to go, is this would not include revenues from the local advertising that these streaming services are doing. So this is just on the streaming service, but when they sell in, because they're able to geographically target local ad content, this is not going to affect those revenues for them. With that, I will depart.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. Good luck with your class.
Sure.
I'm sure there'll be I'm sure you're really on it after afternoon in the Senate. So we have, a motion to move the bill favorably, recognizing that there are the upfront costs and then, but still a net profit. And a second by Senator Baruch. So further discussion, if not, we'll call the roll.
Ruth,
Yes.
Lyons,
Yes,
Birchler,
Yes.
Sears,
No.
Star,
yes,
Westman, no, Kitchen,
Yes.
Reporter.
Oh. Don't know who wants to, who has.
Secretary of
I
State.
have secretary.
Oh, yeah, I guess you do, yeah, and you voted yes, so you can even report it this time, Senator Starr.
Well, it's a good bill.
Yeah,
I don't
okay,
want.
okay, all right. Yeah, we want to promote democracy in this day and age.
While we still have some to promote.
Yeah, I know. Our next item was 312, and we have Damien here. And I did tell, Senator Ingalls that, I thought we'd take it up, all right. This is a bill that, would continue the operation of the Salisbury Fish Hatchery. And, there has been discussion and,
I said, you're a fisherman from way back.
so, our institutions committee has looked at this. I think what they're really thinking is they know that this is an interim bridge until to give planning and the phase out because of the water quality permit that expires. So, now this has the money coming from the general fund, and I've explained to Senator Ingalls that, you may recollect that the governor loved his cash fund. And we set up a cash fund with 2 sub-accounts. I have here a listing of how the governor is proposing to use that general fund that got allocated in that cash fund for capital purposes. I've explained to Senator Ingalls, the money, if he wants to have it, would have to come out of that cash fund allocation. 10 million, yes. So, and there are a whole bunch of things on here, you know, the parking garage repair, HVAC, the renovations, special teams, facilities and storage, by public safety. So there are 2 things that we have really committed to out of this money is probably $1 million to do the planning and design for the forensic facility that we can't site at the psychiatric hospital. And then the money to continue the operation. And the reason we need we need to deal with this, we can do it in the budget, is that the governor assumes savings from ceasing the operation. It was 560 or something like that, off the top of my head.
I believe the amount in here is 550,000.
Yes, it is.
So for the record, I'm Daniel Leonard from the Office of Legislative Counsel. I know you're very short on time this afternoon, so I'll try to be quick. Section 1, provides, a little over a page of intent language. What it really boils down to is that the intent is to keep the fish hatchery operating until at least the end of 2027, when its current water permit runs out. And then, to determine whether it's how to maintain the fish stocking capacity of the state, either through making upgrades to that hatchery or transferring the stocking capacity to another hatchery. The important thing to keep in mind is that you cannot simply take the brood stock from the hatchery and move it to a different hatchery because of disease and contamination issues. So you would have to rebuild the brood stock and build out the facility at a new hatchery. Or at another existing hatchery at this point. So that's where the hard decisions come into play, in terms of maintaining the fish hatchery. And so section 2 of the bill, to that end, would require an annual report every January from ANR to your committees on institution and on natural resources and energy and their House counterparts regarding efforts undertaken and progress with respect to sustaining fish production and stocking capacity in Vermont state-operated hatcheries, including efforts to maintain permits necessary to continue operating Salisbury after December 31, 2027. My understanding is that that will require significant infrastructure investments.
Like about 10 million.
That was the last quote, and so the prices may have gone up since then. But we don't have a more current quote. And then the potential for transferring stocking capacity to one or more state or federally operated hatcheries, including the estimated cost of that. Potential for transferring brood stock to one or more state operated hatcheries, including estimated costs, potential to employ innovative or more cost effective approaches to replace lost stocking capacity, and options for limiting negative economic impact from the potential closure, including the impacts related to tourism from lost fish stocking, and impacts related to loss of staff positions on the Salisbury hatchery.
So, this appropriation, I don't know the mechanics of it because actually this is, it's coming out of the sub-account of the, capital. And there's a sense of coming up from the general fund, so we may need to look at, some of the language.
Right, the language in section 3, the appropriation is, really, the way to think of it is the amount there is the rough amount necessary to operate it. The rest of the language is placeholder until so the cash funds, there is cash fund for capital expenses, and the question is whether there'll be some sort of savings there that can be used in the big bill, or whether the money would come straight out of that cash fund or what.
Could you say that again?
So the
Savings
question,
from where?
savings from the cash fund that could then go into the general fund.
Where's the savings?
The
So-
savings will have to come from here.
So cuts made to the expenditures there.
No,
Yeah.
what the Appropriations Committee is gonna have to do is look at the governor's proposed and accommodate the continuation of the fish hatchery out of that money. Plus,
Right,
out of the 10, they're gonna have to allocate $1 million for the planning and design for the forensic facility. So that's the interplay, because now the capital bill has got general fund, and this is why we still have retained authority over the general fund. That's in the cash fund, which the governor obviously does not prefer, but this is why we think it's important, so that we can have this ability to look at it. So these would not be bonded. This is not bonded money.
no, it can't be bonded money.
No,
Because it's
but the
operating
10 million is
expenses.
not bonded.
But the 10 million there, so the discussion in institutions on this bill was about finding ways to get savings in the cash fund for essential infrastructure investments. through either moving things to bonding or finding savings elsewhere in the capital bill, so that then there is cash available that can be put into the general fund.
This
which
is not bonded
for
money.
operating.
This is just.
Yeah.
Well, but it's, I know, and if we're gonna spend 10 million general fund to upgrade a fish hatchery,
No,
No,
Oh,
no,
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 no, no, no,
it's,
it's a different 10 million.
they're talking
I'm
about,
sorry. This is,
which 10 million are we talking about?
we're
Um,
we're talking about the 550
50.
having to come out of the cash fund
10,
of that the governor has
Right.
allocated. So
Yeah.
they're gonna have to say, we put the fish hatchery above
I
something.
misunderstood Damon. I thought he was saying that,
No.
that the, capital improvement, which were estimated, I think, at 10 million.
But it,
at 10
Would need
million
to
plus.
come out of the general fund.
No, it'd have to be bonded.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I misunderstood.
Yeah,
what you
I'm
said.
sorry, I think I muddied if you'll excuse the pun, I muddied the waters.
Yeah,
The,
two 10 million.
Sounds a little-
It's still 10 million.
yes, the, yeah, the,
This is the governor's proposed use. So Senator
Right.
Ingles understands he's gonna have to revisit and he's gonna have to put,
he's gonna have to find the 12 million. The top level
No, no.
number, it's 10 to 12 million, but in in 3 years. In 27, when the license runs out,
Wow.
that's when you have to find the 10 to 12 million that is the present estimate.
right,
So that's easy.
and this bill leaves open the possibility of doing something else that's more cost effective, but can maintain that stuff.
and
For this
in
state.
no way are we're allowing this work to go, but in no way are we committing to a $10 million bonded
There's-
investment to replace it.
Yeah, there's no commitment right now in this to replace or to upgrade the hatchery. The commitment is to look at options and keep it open for the time being.
There's one in the south.
What language, we're gonna have to change the appropriation, not from the general fund to somewhere else.
No,
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether we want. The big question for us logistically is whether we want to move this forward as a separate bill or whether we can put it just into the big bill or the capital bill.
Put it in the capital bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the one thing to keep in mind is there are two pieces. One, the infrastructure study would go right with the subject matter of the capital bill. The operating expense would probably need to be rolled into the big bill because that's an ongoing operating expense, not a capital expense.
However, some of these here are capital, I agree.
Right,
So we're just gonna have to figure out the mechanics of that, how we
Right.
wanna write it up, so it's very clear that the money is coming off the amount here that they don't have for the more capital kinds of projects. And this is, if you want a copy, this is the governor's proposed use of the 10 million that was included in the capital bill.
he's got 9.5.
Now he's got none.
Well, no, because we also got to forensics, 1.5. What are we doing for the
Or
first?
somewhere in that.
Yeah.
and you also have a capital bill coming over from the House that currently
They're spending all the money, I'm sure.
they're discussing cuts to the cash fund too, but I don't know if that money is gonna get spent somewhere else.
You say cut, I mean like just taking it.
Just line items, reducing the requests in there and making adjustments, but that's where I came from, I'm marking up that bill,
I know,
so.
and we're gonna have to crosswalk that, but I think what is happening is in the budget adjustment. We did spend into that 29 million, and so the House is trying to figure out how to make up about $14 million. One
I see.
items on their list was to reduce the amount of general fund going into the cash
I
fund.
see.
Right,
And so, if that's the case, then, our institutions committee is gonna have to revisit that and it'll make what they do with the remainder, more difficult.
Right, so it's the plain, I guess my only point was just that even that the governor's proposed, by next week the playing field may shift it a little bit, so there's other factors. At play with that $10 million or 9.5 in the governor's proposed.
Yeah, we know that, but you can't deal with what the House does until we know what the House did. But I'm aware that they were thinking about taking 2 million off the top to help make up the. And the big chunk of that was the money that we gave to towns for flood relief. Yeah, that was not included, so that's the challenge here. All right, thank you, Damien.
Thank you for your time.
And we did not get through 195 is.
I can do that in 5 minutes.
Oh, you can?
Yes.
Okay. How much money is that?
212,000, 2 million.
2.8? Well, you're on hold.
No, but I need the bill.
Oh,
So you're gonna hold this till the capital bill or the?
we just have to figure out the logistics of it, and I'm not really sure how we want to word this. To be honest, how we want to crosswalk between what the capital bill. I mean, this has made the capital bill a lot more complicated, now that we've got general fund, but we still have the jurisdiction over the general fund. Well, there wasn't.
Well, then it
Yeah. Okay, so, so Senator Sears,
Yeah, that's 195. It's a bill dealing with violations of conditions of release, basically. Started out as a bail bill, but it'll morph into your committee on judiciary just believes that this is where the problem lies. And there are 3 programs put into the program, into the conditions of release. One is an electronic monitoring program that would be expanded to people who are on conditions of release. Second is the home detention program that you may remember used to be run in Linden County.
yeah,
That would be
by the
expanded
sheriff.
by the sheriff. That would be expanded. It currently has about 8 people in it. And everybody who's in a pretrial supervision, everybody who's in a home detention program is not in jail, and they have to be in jail. So there is a significant savings there. The area where there's the money is the pretrial supervision program, which would be used for people who have had violations of conditions of release, and they would be then supervised in their community.
Can this bill move forward without
Yes.
the money?
Yeah.
Okay, in other words, there are parts of the policy or whatever
Yeah.
that you would need to do.
Yeah, we would
whether
need
you-
to, as we go through the budget, my plan was to see what we could fund for this pretrial supervision. And that's basically what the bill does. There's a couple of other things it does, like clearly makes that using a firearm while selling or dispensing a drug
Oh,
is
yeah.
considered a violent act. Those types of things.
Absolutely can move forward with no
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we have here is 11. It's the creation of positions and where's your money? Where is your dollar?
Money is in
Section
section 11 on page 26.
I don't see money. I see the positions. Am I missing something?
So you don't see money.
Yeah,
No.
there's 7 no employees.
Well, that was just the estimate for you could take out.
Well, you're gonna have to take it all out and look at the whole
Say
thing.
section 11,
Yeah. Is there an actual appropriations somewhere on the place?
I don't believe so.
No. Okay. It's just,
What about the section 5 with the electronic monitoring? Is that in there?
Yes, but there's not an appropriation.
There's no
we had
money?
electronic monitoring.
We've had electronic.
Yeah, no,
We've
no.
got those.
Yeah. they're good.
The department, has over 200 people.
So,
So, and I think that nobody said anything about a need for appropriation for electronic monitoring.
so really, the section 11, and the appropriation, and that would fund. Well, if we created these positions.
Yeah.
And the money that would have to go with them. So.
Yeah.
What we would
I
do
mean-
then is strike section 11 and then the rest of the bill and the policy, depending on what we have for money, whether we have 6 or 3 or, you know, 2 or whatever.
Right, I mean, I know most states have somebody. Massachusetts is probation and parole is assigned to the court, and they supervise people. In New Jersey, there's people from probation and parole who, you know, you just call and say, yes, I'm in drug treatment, and here's the information, or it can all be done electronically, so I'm not sure.
The staffing that maybe,
What they want is 12 new positions.
So, why,
Is there a fiscal note?
yeah, there is a fiscal note right here.
yeah.
Right, but, and so the language says that the DOC will expand and manage.
And but on the monitoring,
On the
section 5,
monitoring.
they say they need $1 million.
But there's no money with it, so they can try and expand all they want.
Well, that's the next, yeah. That's just the next,
That's your wish.
that's another wish.
So the same people in section 11 are not the ones that are in the fiscal impact. They're not that 7 up in the top.
Now, the electronic monitoring is that,
Well, they're adding the two together, 1184, 1,184 and 892. And the 6, wait a minute, I don't know where they came up with the 650. I thought it was 2, yeah, if you total those together, it's 2.
Permanent positions.
all right, so,
Yeah, the fiscal impact is 2,076,000.
and that's.
And then you get
positions.
getting the background and the various stuff.
So if we remove section 11,
Yeah.
and that's gonna have to be all part of looking at what we do with our whole justice system and how much money we can squeeze, then there's nothing else here to create
No.
positions or funding.
Well, no, if you take section 11 out, there's,
Okay, there's 5 that, according to the fiscal note,
How does 5 do it? I'm trying to find.
they want, there's no money
They
in
they
5.
shall expand, but there's no money.
Same with positions, there's positions, but no.
Yeah.
that's just,
Oh, yeah.
you know, they don't. Governor starts out saying, let's, you know, deal with the catch and release, that's what we're doing.
Right.
And if it's gonna cost some money, then we have to come up with money to do it, or we don't do it this way.
Or we don't do
If
it
we
for
don't do it
spending.
this way, you know, quite frankly. I mean, I don't know what to do when judges let somebody go on.
Well,
That was my question. What happens if it says shall expand and the judge says, put the person on monitoring and the no monitor clause? Or they just say, you're flat, that.
Well,
They go to
we'll
jail.
work this out.
Huh?
I would say this is a priority for funding.
Mhm.
That is not part of the state's attorney's request, is not part of the other people's requests. This is a priority, I think, of the Senate Judiciary Committee. So as we hear this week from the various departments,
Well,
and
there,
there's 4 things going on. One is the House is poised to fund a lot of this stuff with half-year money. And then
I don't
try to
like
come up
that.
with that
That's a camel's
26.
nose in the tent and then
Yeah, well, that's what
deliberately,
I've been presented.
yeah.
So there's a lot to work out between now and May.
so should we do this now or?
Well, you wanna let it go forward.
I wanna let it go
There's a
forward and
lot
see
of
what the House
policy here.
does. There's a lot of policy here, a lot of changes that are necessary. And if we don't do, quite frankly, if we don't do the,
Well, the positions, but we could do the
Yeah.
monitoring,
if we do the electronic monitoring and the, you know,
which is already in place. We're gonna expand what we're doing.
right.
There's some
And the
capacity
home
for it.
detention is already in place. And we're just, but I will say, the wording of the bill makes clear that anybody that's in home detention, whether they want to be incarcerated.
See,
You can't get in there without that, so that automatically saves money.
Yeah.
maybe you have the wrong kind of bracelets. Cause I have Benny has a bracelet.
So does Marley.
And it's on, and if he goes outside of his territory that he's allowed,
It's that.
gets that. So maybe if you had,
So does Marley.
you know,
I'm gonna take this creative thinking down to, a motion to strike, strike section
I'll move to
11
strike section.
and, move the bill favorably, as amended. And where's our clerk? He's left.
So even though section 5 talks about expanding it,
It's already an existing program. There's no appropriation with it. Corrections, it's got some capacity, so their expansion could be somewhat.
Fiscal,
Depending on
so when
what-
the fiscal note said this, they're gonna spend money on, they just mean money they already spending for.
I don't know. I can't answer that. Don't see
Well,
Wait, you got, Scott hasn't seen them.
Do you,
Madam Chair, I'm happy to explain the cost of the, I'm just gonna, if you'd like.
well, right, when DOC, they must have testified in
They
finance
did.
then.
Yeah, DOC, my apologies, Scott Moore, Joint Fiscal Office for the record. DOC had gotten to me some of the costs, and so like 1.1 million for the electronic monitoring would be to like pay for the GPS units. So that would be a cost to expand, and I believe they said 500 units. So that's what that cost would
Oh,
be.
but that's,
So, and they might not necessarily need all 500, but that was.
Seems like a lot.
yeah,
I think so.
Sorry, Molly.
they don't really wanna do this.
So I think that was the budget they presented to me as part of the
Okay.
costs, that's what. the
Well,
capacity.
in other words, it hasn't been carefully vetted and, seems like
And they might-
500 is,
They might need to,
they might need
some for
50.
replacements and that kind of stuff.
Well,
We went to passive also, and that's, I think, an estimate for non-passive, is it not?
I couldn't speak to that, but.
Well, I believe that we said they could do it passively after listening to them whine.
okay,
On the record.
so Senator Peru,
So I agree that the home detention and monitoring are pre-existing and we're expanding, but pretrial supervision we don't have now.
and Senator Sears has indicated that that will come in part of the budget and yet to be, its fate is yet to be determined.
And so I'm wondering if we're striking section 6 as well as 11.
What is section 6?
Section 6 creates the pretrial supervision program, which if we're not funding it, then,
Well,
So that's not in the fiscal note that's having funds?
well, I mean, that's,
That
Yeah, it
leaves
is.
nobody
That's-
supervising those folks who are violating conditions of release, which results in more people going to jail.
all right, well, we could throw in the pretrial supervision program, the creation, and would be contingent upon funding.
They can put a line in there.
And,
that sounds good.
that way.
Yeah.
Because right now.
I'm fine with
funding
that.
of New programs are becoming a real, kind of a red line.
Yeah, and I don't know what the House will do, but I would argue strongly that if we don't start supervising some of these people on conditions of release, we're gonna have more people in jail.
So what I'm gonna
And
do.
paying more there, so.
What I'll do is,
Then they'll
Uh,
do drafters.
no, Ben is sick. So we're gonna have to, have some discussion tomorrow, get the amendment that would strike section 11
Oh,
and
yes.
add the language to section 6. It makes it, the startup of the program contingent upon funding. And then we can pass it out very quickly tomorrow.
Alright.
It's a,
Yeah, as long as it makes it by Friday.
Would you still do that with section 5 too, contingent on funding, or do you just don't feel like that funding is gonna be?
I think that funding's there.
they've already got some, so they've probably got some capacity to expand it.
And if
It's not a
there's
new
50
program.
people on
The
the
Department of
GPS, it's not
Corrections
gonna
is
be-
trying to get rid of all of their outside programs, like work crew, home detention, everything. They wanna,
Who do they wanna give? Judiciary?
They want to go to the
Oh,
jail.
they're just trying to get rid of it. And that's part of the, I
So they
think,
don't wanna have them at all, or they don't want to be in
they
charge?
don't wanna have work crew, they don't wanna have a lot of these.
Well, I thought they
They're
were-
trying to get rid of home
Why
detention
not have work?
and, you know,
I get rid of all of
Right.
this stuff.
Why
Yeah.
not have work?
because, you know, the part, you know, I'm just saying, the testimony that we've gotten and in talking with the commissioner and others, and particularly Representative Evans, is that they don't want to do work.
Well, I thought that we were doing a diversion for a lot of the people that used to be
Right,
incarcerated and, work.
and they said that their numbers were way down.
Yeah.
That
Because we're not putting them in jail to begin with, we're diverting them to.
we're diverting them, and so when and then they have a lot of people who go to work crews violate conditions of release by not going to work.
Yeah.
And
So then they should.
it goes back to this, I feel that if you continually violate conditions of release,
You should go to
what should
jail.
you do? Should you go to jail or should there be some other?
Some of them, depending on the nature of the
Yeah.
crime.
some of them should.
Should pat them on the back and say,
So,
you're gonna be a good.
Committee, what I'm gonna do is tomorrow, we'll follow up and do an amendment. to
You,
deal with
let me
this
know if you
consent.
need somebody to draft, I'll ask Eric or.
Yeah,
Michelle to
okay,
pitch it.
and they can come and check, and then we'll just move it out quickly tomorrow. So,
That's
and
fine,
two fifty-three is,
Building energy code.
okay. And then the other we have here is 247. That's a veggie bill. We have a request from the auditor, he has concerns about, using veggie for capital improvements.
Yeah.
And so does Tom Cabet. So, I have to honor a request to have him come in and say, and I alerted the chair, as well. And I don't know how well we're doing, Hannah, in terms of what we have left, but hopefully we're making progress.
We're gonna have that clean heat standard coming late on, we need to vote it out Friday.
Mhm.
Needs to make crossover. Oh my God.
No, you
I meant-
talking
He's
about.
talking about
Super
this.
fun.
I meant the
Super
super-
fun.
yeah.
I was like, no, no, standard.
Yeah, so committee, it's 10:05, so I think after today's length of time on the floor, people are ready to call it a day. Our goal is to get everything we can out, Fridays. So, yeah, well, we move pretty quickly, so we'll, move. I just need to make sure 181 as it would relate, we wanna make sure that, that. I think as long as the money's coming in the same year that the expenditure, it's just a cash flow issue, but I just want to confirm that. So, we're offline.